You think you're kind, you think you're generous, you think you're the one holding everything and everyone together, the one who remembers the birthdays, smooths over the tension, and never asks for too much in return. But there's a moment, usually when everything goes quiet, when something inside you shifts. A subtle unease, a whisper in the background of your mind. Why do I feel so empty after doing everything right? That voice isn't your guilt. It's not shame or ingratitude. It's your soul, starving for something you've spent a lifetime putting last. And that's where the story of a people pleaser really begins. Not in the workplace, not in romantic relationships, but far earlier, before you had the language for things like boundaries, self-worth, or emotional safety. Maybe you were the easy one, the kid who didn't cause trouble. Maybe you were praised for being helpful, polite, flexible. Maybe the adults around you were overwhelmed, distracted, or emotionally unpredictable, and you learned to stay small so things didn't get worse. Being liked became a form of protection. Being useful became a way to feel needed. So you learned to read the room. You tracked everyone else's moods before you even understood your own. You adjusted. You kept the peace. You smiled through hurt. You said sorry even when you were the one bleeding. And slowly, without realizing it, you built a life around other people's comfort at the cost of your own identity. You weren't born a people pleaser. You were trained to be one. It was your survival strategy, your way of securing love, safety, and a place in the world when those things felt conditional. And now, that hollow feeling you can't quite shake, it isn't selfish, it's sacred. It's the voice of your true self, quietly asking to be remembered, not for what you can do, or fix, or manage, but simply for who you are. And here's where Nietzsche enters the picture, bold, uncompromising, and unafraid to name the thing most of us are too polite to admit. He wouldn't call this behavior kindness. He wouldn't praise it as virtue. He'd call it what it truly is, slavery, not the kind bound by chains or law, but a quieter, more invisible kind, one we impose on ourselves. According to Nietzsche, this is the legacy of slave morality, a moral system born not from strength, but from fear. Fear of being judged, fear of standing out, fear of being truly seen and then rejected for it. So instead of honoring our instincts, our desires, our bold truths, we suppress them. We trade authenticity for approval, and we call it being good. You betray yourself just to be accepted. You confuse compliance with love. You label your silence as loyalty, when really, it's avoidance in disguise. And this quiet betrayal, it doesn't go unnoticed by your soul. It builds slowly until one day you wake up and realize you've lost touch with what you actually want. Every decision feels filtered through someone else's hopes, disappointments, or standards. You hesitate before you speak, afraid of saying the wrong thing. You smile before you feel, worried your truth might be too much. You say yes before you think, because saying no feels dangerous. And what you get in return isn't intimacy, it's not true connection, it's comfort, familiarity, a surface-level peace that looks nice but costs everything. Nietzsche wasn't trying to be cruel, he was trying to wake us up, to remind us that playing small in the name of goodness is still a form of imprisonment. And the door to that prison, it only opens when you choose honesty over approval. But deep beneath all the smiling, the nodding, the endless accommodating, there's something else, something darker, something Nietzsche warned us about. He called it resentment, a slow, corrosive resentment that brews when you constantly silence yourself in exchange for approval. It doesn't explode, it simmers, it creeps in quietly, showing up as fatigue that sleep can't fix, as irritation you can't explain, as sadness you can't voice because technically nothing's wrong. You start to feel used, but you smile anyway. You tell yourself you're just being kind, that it's noble to put others first. But inside, something feels off, hollow, like you're giving parts of yourself away, and no one's noticing they're missing. This is what it costs to live a life of constant adaptation. You slowly disappear, not in some dramatic, cinematic way, but in tiny, imperceptible moments. You stop expressing your preferences. You second-guess your desires. Your boundaries start to blur. You become a version of yourself tailored for comfort, their comfort, not yours. And maybe the scariest part, no one notices, because you taught them not to. You trained them to expect your yes. You modeled that you didn't have needs. You told them, through your silence, your overgiving, your chameleon-like flexibility, that you would always bend, never break. And now, the moment you stop, the moment you finally try to say no, to set a boundary, to speak with clarity, they say you've changed, they say you're selfish, they call you cold, but the truth is, you're not becoming cold, you're becoming real, and realness, after a lifetime of pretending, will always look like rebellion to those who benefited from your silence. If this is hitting somewhere deep, if you feel like I've been reading pages from a diary you didn't even realize you were writing, just pause for a second, take a breath, let it land, because this kind of realization isn't small, it stirs things. It wakes up parts of you that have been quiet for a long time, waiting to be heard. And if any part of this resonates with you, I invite you to like or subscribe, not for the algorithm, but because this is more than just a video. It's a conversation, a path, a slow return to yourself. And that kind of journey, you shouldn't have to walk it alone. This space is here for people like you, people waking up from years of self-abandonment, ready to reclaim their voice. So stay, come back, let's figure it out together, one honest moment at a time. Let's return to Nietzsche. He wrote, "He who cannot command himself must obey." At first glance, it sounds harsh, almost unforgiving, but if you sit with it, something deeper begins to emerge. This isn't about dominance or control in the external world. It's about the quiet war inside you. The war between your true self and the version you think others will accept. This is the part no one tells you about people-pleasing. It doesn't stem from pure generosity. On the surface, yes, it looks kind, selfless, thoughtful, but underneath, it's often rooted in fear. It's not a gift, it's a strategy, a survival mechanism. Because when you haven't learned how to command yourself, how to trust your instincts, honor your boundaries, or protect your truth, you end up obeying others instead. You say yes when you mean no. You accommodate until you disappear. You fear rejection more than you fear self-betrayal, so you obey, cheerfully, politely, invisibly. But here's the truth, that obedience is not sustainable, because no matter how agreeable you are, no matter how much you twist yourself into someone else's ideal, you will never feel truly safe if your sense of worth is built on someone else's approval. Their moods, their validation, their acceptance, those are fragile foundations for a self. And no matter how much you give, no matter how tirelessly you perform the role of the good one, it will never feel like enough if you've made love something that must be earned through sacrifice. Because deep down, a part of you knows love given for performance isn't real love, it's a transaction. Nietzsche wasn't attacking kindness, he was pointing to a deeper kind of power, the kind that comes when you stop obeying out of fear and start living from inner authority. That's where freedom begins. Here's where things get darker and more honest. People pleasers, despite their best intentions, often attract what Nietzsche might call weaker spirits, not necessarily evil or manipulative, but dependent. People who subconsciously sense your silence, your softness, and see it as an opening. They don't do this with malice, but they feed on it, on your predictability, your availability, your willingness to stretch, bend, and overextend. They love that you don't ask for much, that you're always the steady one, that you'll say yes, even when you're drowning. But here's the painful part. They don't truly love you. They love the function you serve, the role you play, the emotional labor you provide without question. And when that realization hits, it shatters something deep. There's a grief in it, a holy rage, a spark that flares up from somewhere you forgot existed, because suddenly it becomes undeniable. You've been giving out yeses that weren't true. You've been apologizing for simply having needs. You've been shrinking your voice, minimizing your feelings, making yourself easier to digest. And for what? A temporary sense of peace, a flash of approval, a room full of people who know the version of you that never disagrees, never pushes back, never dares to say, I matter too. This is the moment many people pleasers begin to wake up. The moment they realize the love they've been chasing wasn't real, it was conditional, and the peace they've been keeping wasn't peace at all. It was silence, it was disappearance. But now, that silence is breaking, and what comes next is you. This is your moment, not loud, not dramatic. There's no grand revelation, no crashing thunder, just a quiet fracture, a subtle but irreversible shift. It's the recognition that something's been off for a long time, that beneath the kindness, the patience, the endless accommodating, you've been betraying yourself, not once or twice, but constantly, in small, almost invisible ways. And now, that truth has surfaced. If you don't stop, if you keep abandoning yourself for the sake of harmony, the cost won't just be burnout. It will be your soul, your sense of identity, the deep-rooted knowing of who you are and what you need. But here's the good news. This moment, it's not the end, it's the beginning. Nietzsche didn't believe in staying broken. He didn't romanticize suffering or martyrdom. He believed in self-overcoming, the process of confronting your patterns, facing your fears, and rising from the ruins of who you were told to be. Not healing through comfort, not numbing through distractions, but growing through discomfort, through confrontation, through truth. He wrote, "Become who you are. Not who they trained you to be, not who they need you to be, not the version of you that keeps the peace while quietly unraveling, but you, the one beneath the mask, the one beneath the smile you wear when you're hurting, the one who's been waiting patiently for permission to finally exist. That version of you isn't weak, it isn't selfish, it's real, and reclaiming it, that quiet, steady act of self-respect, is how you begin again, not by pleasing, not by performing, but by remembering that your life was never meant to be a role, it was meant to be a revolution." And that kind of return to yourself, the one that Nietzsche pointed to, the one that calls you out of the role and back into your real life, it doesn't start with a scream, it doesn't need an audience, it doesn't even look like courage at first. It starts quietly, it starts with a single word: no, I'm not available right now. No, I don't feel good doing this. No, I'm not going to keep bending just to be accepted. No, I'm not going to keep proving that I'm worthy of love. Because love, real love, it's not something you earn by shrinking. It's not something you secure by over-delivering, over-apologizing, or over-functioning. Love is supposed to be seen, not bargained for. The first time you say no, it might shake something loose. It might feel like violence, not because you're being cruel, but because you've been taught that boundaries are betrayal, that protecting your peace means harming someone else. The second time you say no, it might feel like grief. Grief for all the times you didn't. Grief for the version of you that only knew how to be loved by disappearing. But keep going, because eventually that no becomes a door. And on the other side is freedom. Freedom from performance, freedom from resentment, freedom from the quiet exhaustion of trying to be everything to everyone. And in that space, finally, after all this time, you get to hear your own voice again. You get to ask, without guilt, what do I need? What do I want? Who am I when I'm not being everything for everyone else? And the answer, that's where your real life begins. Yes, people will leave. When you stop saying yes to everything, when you start honoring your boundaries and speaking your truth, there will be people who don't understand, people who only felt close to you because you made yourself small enough to fit their needs. They stayed for your silence, not your wholeness, and when you stop performing, they may slip away, but that's not a loss. It's a filter. It clarifies who's really with you and who was only with the version of you that never asked for much, the version who overfunctioned, stayed agreeable, kept the peace at any cost. When that version fades, what remains is rare and real. And in that quiet space, something profound happens. For the first time, your inner dialogue shifts. You stop wondering, do they love me? The question that haunted you for so long. Instead, you begin to ask, do I? Do I love the person I'm becoming? Do I feel proud of how I show up now? Do I feel safe in my own presence? And if the answer is yes, even just a quiet, tentative yes, that's everything. That's the beginning of real love, the kind that doesn't disappear when you stop pretending. So let me leave you with a question, one that Nietzsche, with all his intensity and honesty, might have asked. If you stopped trying to please everyone, who would you become? Not in theory, not as some abstract ideal, but in reality, right here, right now. If you no longer needed to be the agreeable one, the peacemaker, the one who keeps everyone else comfortable, who would show up in your place? What parts of you would finally have space to speak? What dreams, opinions, desires have you buried just to keep the harmony? That person, the one beneath the performance, isn't a threat. They're not too much. They're the truest thing about you, and maybe that's the version of you worth meeting. Not the one who pleases, but the one who lives. Fully, honestly, unapologetically, because becoming that person isn't selfish, it's the beginning of freedom.